course, we've been watching the dollar pound performance ahead of that announcement. And just to take it back just a little bit, we are facing a UK that's dealing with dire economic situations on that particular front. So it's about the new Prime Minister coming in with new economic policies, as well as a Bank of England that's having to deal with various issues, including high inflation as that particular region battles an energy crunch. Investors are looking at the pound and the performance against the dollar to see at some point whether it will trade below parity, with everyone looking at that. But we are actually seeing a dollar pound performance that's the weakest since 1985, and investors bracing for further weakness. But for more analysis and I suppose his point of view of that announcement, we do have Gary Boyson, who's a portfolio manager at Rand Swiss. Gary, we're looking at that currency performance. So what did you make of the reaction? What you would have expected given this announcement, or something else?
I think it was largely expected that we're going to see Truss become the new UK Prime Minister, and as such we saw almost no reaction, certainly not in the pound dollar cross. I mean, there was a mild strengthening, and I would expect the pound to have strengthened slightly against the dollar, taking the uncertainty. Markets don't like uncertainty, just taking the uncertainty of the result out of the situation. You'd expect a mild drift higher. We didn't even get that. We got a small move maybe back to where we were 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So very little reaction in financial markets, and because it's a result that everyone largely expected. And I think, as you said, it's an incredibly tough job that she has ahead of her. You're talking about a long and deep recession in the UK, double-digit inflation, and how we're going to, at least how the UK is going to deal with the energy crisis. So she's obviously promised swift action, but so far we don't have any plans, so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Let's stay in that region, because you've got the ECB meeting this week, everyone anticipating 75 basis points. And depending on who you speak to, some will say, I never imagined an ECB that would be considering such a high interest rate hike. Can it get any worse in Europe at this point?
Oh, it can get a lot worse, a lot worse. So obviously we've had disruptions of the Nord Stream 1 from Russia. That's sent energy prices spiraling almost out of control. We've had sort of reports now surfacing that previously it was about turbines not making it on time, and all sorts of almost posturing. But Putin now coming out and saying that the West must reduce sanctions before he turns back on the gas. So there's massive issues. At the same time, Europe is fairly indebted. When you have low interest rates for a long period of time, as we've seen in Europe, credit balances tend to swell. So when you do see interest rates rising, 75 basis points off such a low base, it has a dramatic effect. Debt becomes very quickly unaffordable. The cost of capital is just so high that the projects can't get approved. So yes, I think Europe is facing a very difficult time going into winter now as well. High energy prices in winter. It depends, I suppose, how cold the winter actually is.
Yeah.
But winter in the EU is not like winter in South Africa. You have to have heating, otherwise you will see people dying. So it's. I think they're in a very difficult position, and I think it can get a lot worse before it gets better.
Building on that, you have these themes of peak hawkishness, peak inflation, and then characterize that with the historic performance of what September generally brings. I asked this last week to another market analyst, do I wake you up when September ends?
I think that's maybe not. When you get kind of peak pessimism, that's normally the best time to be buying certainly into the equity markets. So I think there are huge opportunities at the moment, but I think if you're looking at Europe specifically, I think you've got to be very selective. You've got to be ready to ride out a long period of very difficult economic news. But I think it's important that viewers remember that financial markets price in bad news. So the fact that we're going into a period of what looks like a deep recession, which looks like a period of very high inflation, they need to decide, is that reflected in security prices or not? And we've got the European markets heavily down at the moment. So definitely pockets of value starting to emerge. And this is the time when you should actually be getting active, because this is when investors are really going to be rewarded if they're taking a long-term view. Okay, let's bring things locally. We are still in results season. I've been inundated with a whole host of financial statements. Any results that caught your attention today? We had AVI, RCL, Bidvest, etc. So I had a look at Bidvest and AVI. So both excellent sets set of results, both announced to the market well in advance where the figures should be. So if you look at AVI, their guided range was to see headline earnings rising between 5 and 7%. We got 6.1%, so right in line with guidance. No surprises there. So we haven't seen a big share price reaction, but the company just commenting that as it's obviously such a diversified industrial conglomerate, that as South Africa gets back to work, as the COVID restrictions have been reduced, this is obviously going to see a natural uplift in their business. They're expecting more from their financial services business going forward as well. If you look at, that was Bidvest at least. But you obviously, if you look at AVI from the operational point of view, they, all around, very decent set of results. I think the only segment of their business that was underperforming was the I&J business. Obviously, with the rise in fuel costs and inflation, that just hampered them a little bit there. But certainly, overall, the group doing very well.
All right. Well, let's leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. That is Gary Boyson, who is a portfolio manager at Rand Swiss. Looking at what's happening as we look at the Rand pound exchange, 1984, and of course, pound to the dollar around 115. But we'll continue to watch that price action in terms of what is happening with the pound as well as the euro as we go into that all-important ECB meeting later this week. That is it from me. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have more news for you, so stay tuned.